About 25 years ago, I was playing guitar and singing in a band over on the west side of Phoenix, and I remember coming off stage for a break, and I met this guy, and he was cool. He was, he was kind of in the business. He'd been around for a while, probably 20 years older than me, and we were talking on break, and we really hit it off. And towards the end of my 20-minute break, I was getting ready to go back on stage, and he said, Michael, if can I give you one just small piece of advice, and don't take it the wrong way. I just want you to, I just want to tell you something. I said, sure, sure. He said, hey, you're talented, you guys are good, and all that. He goes, but you know what, man, get a real career. And I was like, okay, see ya. And I went back up on stage, and I think the whole night I didn't even think about what I was playing. I was in a haze because I was kind of indignant, and I was a little bit put off by that. But I thought about it over the weekend and the following week, and it was an epiphany for me. And it began a long journey, really, into transitioning from one career into another, which became obviously much more rewarding and fulfilling and profitable for me. It wasn't soon after that I kind of traded in my studio engineering and cabling and mixing boards and racks of limiters and compressors and all that stuff for working as a networking technician for a large, now defunct telecommunications company. Well, why do I say that? You might be here because you want a real career, or maybe you want another career or a new career. Maybe you're just curious about Juniper's operating system, Junos. Whatever your reason, whatever your goal, I want to help you get there as quickly and effectively as possible. When I discovered that CBT Nuggets was going to do Juniper training, I was so pumped, man. I was so excited. I got exposed to Juniper about 5 years ago when I was doing consulting at a large healthcare company over on the East Coast. And I wasn't consulting for networking, but they were a Juniper shop. And so I got to spend about a week with these guys, and man, I was so impressed. And I'm a Cisco person. I've CCNP security. I've been doing Cisco since the early 90s, but I was just blown away. And so I just say, Juniper, yes, okay? I cannot wait to turn you on to this incredible operating system and this platform. Now, my approach to this is going to be a scenario-based approach, and we're going to do some role playing, and that's going to help us get from point A to point B as quickly and effectively as possible. Let me just show you real quick the gear that we're going to be working with, not just in this Nugget series, but as we progress into the Juniper Enterprise certifications, then hopefully I'll have you in the Juniper Security certifications in the upcoming months. This is my rack in my home office of Juniper and Cisco equipment. We're going to be working in this Nugget on primarily these three devices right here. Let me show you what those are. It's the Juniper EX2200 switch. It's the Juniper J2320 router. And it's the J2350 router. Now what we're going to find out is that all three of these devices do switching and routing, okay? We don't really have pure layer 2 and layer 3 devices anymore, and we're going to find that out. Now these devices have obviously a bunch of modular components that are shoved into these slots here. Mine don't have that yet, but as we progress through this Juniper training and onward, we'll start to add those components, and we'll do that together. Now, as we look at my rack here, what you notice is a lot of Cisco equipment too. I've got Cisco switches and multi-layer switches and routers. There's a IPS sensor, a couple of ASA firewalls, actually another firewall here, a 5505. And what's interesting is as we move forward through Juniper, and this is a very real-world scenario, we're going to be transitioning our Cisco equipment, migrating into Juniper. Okay. I'll just put Junos. And actually what we're going to be dealing with here in our scenario is we're going to have a Junos core or enterprise LAN network, and then going out towards the internet edge we have our Cisco equipment. So this is a perfect example of what we're going to be doing in a lot of environments where we're going to be extending our Junos core out to the enterprise edge and replacing our Cisco equipment with Junos equipment. That's what I'll be doing over the upcoming months. And in this process, we'll learn about migrating from one platform to the other. We'll learn about distributing one set of routing information into other routing information, importing and exporting routing information. distributing from, let's say, EIGRP into OSPF. Okay, now I'm getting ahead of myself because we've got a lot of fundamentals to cover in this JNCIA series. But that's the gear we're working with. Let's get back to the drawing board. By the way, my name is Michael Shannon, and I've been training for CBT Nuggets since 2003, and maybe I assumed that you've already taken some training with me, but you know what? This might be your first Nugget series or your first Nugget series with me. So I want to officially welcome you and tell you how excited I am. I just can't wait to share this information with you. Now, we're all, fired up about Juniper. We see the gear. Let's talk about this scenario that we're going to be basing this entire Nugget series on. And here's the deal. And listen carefully. You're going to be playing a big role in this, obviously. Now, I have a friend. Now, this is, again, hypothetical, but I have a friend at a manufacturing firm called Nugget Lab. And she's been there for quite a while. And they actually transitioned a lot of their network from Cisco to Juniper. But she's moving on to another opportunity where she's going to get paid more money and have more responsibility on higher end gear. So she called me up and she said, you know what, I need somebody fast who can come in and replace me. Now, we have Juniper. This is not a big company. It's just a small to medium-sized business. And we've got Juniper at the core of our network, and we've got Cisco out at the internet edge. And I really need somebody who can come in here and take over the Juniper part of it, okay? I've got a technician, a Cisco CCNP, who deals with the Cisco internet part. So I need somebody, and I need somebody fast. Now, next week is a vacation. It's a holiday. So really, I need him to come in about 10 days. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get you ramped up, okay, in about 10 days to go in and take over for this friend of mine. This is a huge opportunity for you, okay? So we got to move fast. Now, like I said, not a big company, but it's still an enterprise. Remember, enterprise doesn't mean, you've got hundreds and thousands of routers. An enterprise just simply means that you are in control of your equipment. It's customer premises equipment. It's your enterprise. And so we know that you can do it. We just have to get you ramped up with the Junos operating system and configuring and maintaining routers and switches so you can walk in about 10 days and take over. Now that's our scenario, okay? And I realize this. You might be here taking this Juniper Nugget series. You already know Cisco really well. And you just want to go through here and find out, what are the differences between Cisco and Juniper. Well, let me tell you, that's not going to be our main focus here, okay? This is Juniper training. And I will from time to time point out some of the differences. And I'm very flexible. As I go, I may actually create a individual nugget that just talks about for 30, 40 minutes the differences between Cisco and Juniper. But that's not my approach here. Okay, this is basically preparing you for the JN0 101 exam and the JNCIA certification, and following with our real world scenario, getting you ramped up and ready to go in about 10 days to walk into this organization and manage this small business data center or core network. That's our goal, okay? Now, what's the plan of attack? Let me begin by saying that this is my outline. This is what I put together, and over the next few weeks, I'll be producing these, one at a time with this overall scenario vision in mind that we're working through to go into this Nugget Lab manufacturing firm and operate their Juniper core network. However, I reserve the right to change my mind along the way. I want you to know that, because if I feel like I need to add an extra nugget here or I need to go in a different direction, I'm going to do that, and I'll explain why. Okay? Now you might be asking, where did I get, and this is not the only, there's more than this. Okay, this is only the first half of our outline. You might be asking, where did I come up with this? Okay, well, it's a combination of three things. It's first of all what I believe to be real world information that you need to be successful immediately. Number two, it comes from the exam. Okay, when you take the exam, when you walk out of there and you've passed, they have several domains that they show you the percentages of what you got right in those different domains. And so it's also based on those domains of the exam. Exactly. Also, Juniper's website, they publish their key objectives for the JNCIA. It's a combination of those published objectives. It's my experience on the exam, of course, passing the exam, and the domains of the exam, and passing on my real world knowledge to you. Okay, so what we're doing right now is basically we're in the introduction. Okay, that's what we're talking about now. We're getting our feet wet, we're getting fired up, we're getting motivated, we're getting ready to go because we're going to move pretty quickly. All right, now one thing about this JNCIA certification and this exam is they kind of add to this some what we call Network Plus type information. CompTIA is Network Plus, something you might see maybe in a CCNA, Jeremy Chiara's ICND1. They kind of take you from the very beginning like you don't know anything about networking. Okay, there's actually questions that are about layer 2 and layer 3 of the OSI model and learning how to do IP subnetting. So there's a lot of just networking basics here. But rather than starting out and going, you know what, I'm going to talk about the architecture and we're going to do IP subnetting and talk about the OSI models. You know what? No way. That's not what I would do for you anyway if you were getting ready to go and take this job in 10 days. Okay? So what I'm going to do is we're going to hit the ground running. We're going to get started with the J series router and the EX series switch. In other words, what would you do when you walk in that door the first day on the job and you've signed your paperwork and you've met everybody and they sit you down at your desk? What is the first thing you're going to do? Okay, you're going to get started. And so that's the approach we're going to take. So we're going to dive right into Junos, and then we'll actually look at some very practical interface configuration options. Then we'll take some sidebars. Okay, so the lecture type stuff that you have to know. I mean, building that foundation of networking, I'm going to approach that. I'm going to space that out through this series, and we'll hit on it as a sidebar. So we'll get into the architecture and the software fundamentals about 5 nuggets in, right? So you'll need a break from the interface and configuration, and we'll talk about architecture and software fundamentals. Then we'll jump right back in and do configuration basics. And I don't mean just basics. I mean, we'll cover a wide variety of basic and intermediate Junos configuration. Next, we'll take another sidebar and we'll break out into some of the networking essentials, the OSI layer 2 essentials and layer 3 exam essentials. I'm going to focus on what you need to know for the exam and a little bit extra thrown in there. Now let me just tell you this. I want to highly suggest to you that for your kind of basic networking knowledge, and if you have very little of that, and you're using this Juniper series as kind of your introduction into networking, I want to suggest to you that you go to CBT Nuggets and do this. You might want to consider getting some, a few extra hours of training from CBT Nuggets and going up here, and I would recommend 3 different things to build that networking foundation. If you go to the CompTIA link here under our IT training, there's the Network Plus training. And in Network Plus, which is a series that I did, you get common networking protocols and 3 nuggets on IP addressing. Now, this routing concepts, you don't need to go that far. We're going to cover that from a Junos perspective in my series here. But there's several nuggets here on just basic networking protocols and 3 nuggets on IP addressing, also talking about layer 2 MAC addressing. So you might want to check those out. You can also go up and go to the Cisco area here. I know, Cisco, but listen, in the ICND1, okay, Jeremy Chiara goes in here and starts out, what is a network living in the OSI world, and then here he does a nugget on addressing fundamentals, okay, and TCP and UDP. So he's got 4 or 5 excellent, not very long nuggets to build that network foundation. That's another great option. A third option is under the Microsoft Windows area, and if you go in here and take a look at the network infrastructure, James Conrad is going to take you and give you 3 nuggets on IP addressing, custom subnetting, and variable length subnet masking or supernetting. So you've got some great resources to build the foundation for networking because we don't have the time to do that in this JNCIA series. Okay, so if you need to build that foundation, maybe look into getting maybe some 24, 74 hours of extra access and go and build that foundation. And you've got plenty of time because we're not going to get into the layer 2 exam essentials and layer 3 exam essentials until about nugget 8 or 9. And we won't get into routing fundamentals or routing policy until later. right? So you've got time to build that while I'm showing you the fundamentals and the basics of the Junos operating system and kind of getting around and configuring and working with your router and your switch, okay? Primarily your router. This particular JNCIA focuses on the router. The next level, JNCIS, is going to introduce switching, okay? So we'll look at operational monitoring, okay, in Junos. We'll look at operational maintenance, and this deals with, files and backups and archives, things like that. And then we'll get into routing fundamentals, okay? I have a lowercase p and an uppercase p, okay? I noticed that, sorry. Routing fundamentals from the Juniper point of view, okay? Very important. Then we'll get into routing policy. This is some of the intermediate to advanced topics. Routing policy, firewall filters, which you may know as access control lists or access control rules. We call them firewall filters here in Juniper. And then finally we'll end up with class of service. Awesome stuff. So this is about 16 nuggets that we're going to have in this series. I may add one or two. We'll see how we go. But that's our plan of attack. Hopefully you are as excited as I am about learning this as I am to teach this to you, because I'm chomping at the bit. Like I said, I've been waiting for a long time for CBT Nuggets to go into this Juniper space, and it's awesome, and I can't wait to get started. So that wraps up our introduction. Again, my name is Michael Shannon. It's great to have you here, and in our next nugget, we're going to dive into the Juniper router and switch right off the bat. What would you do day one when you walk into Nugget Lab and you start getting your hands on the equipment? All right, right on. In this first nugget, our introduction to JNCIA, or the JN0101 certification exam, I welcomed you to this hopefully long journey through enterprise and security with Juniper. So we talked about, why we're here, why I'm here, okay? And we're getting excited about it. We took a look at my gear that we're going to be dealing with, the gear that you'll be learning on. Our scenario, remember, we're going to Nugget Lab, a manufacturing firm, and you've got about 10 days to ramp up, and I'm your man. I'm going to prepare you for that experience, for that move in your career. And then we got a plan of attack. 16 action-packed nuggets in this JNCIA series to prepare you for the real world and for the exam. I hope you're excited. I know I am. I hope this CBT nugget was informative for you. I want to thank you for viewing.